Hi, once again welcome back to Obstetrics and Gynecology videos. Today we are going to see about anemia during the pregnancy. Before dealing with the anemia, first we should understand the normal blood levels. The normal level of RBC or red blood corpuscles is, in the females, it is 4.5 to 5 millions per millimeter cube, and the hemoglobin level in female is 12 to 14 gram per deciliter or 12 to 14 gram per 100 cc. During the pregnancy, this hemoglobin level will become 10 to 12 gram per deciliter. So because of this, physiological anemia will occur, and it is due to this hemodilution or physiological anemia is due to the increase in the plasma volume more than the red blood cell volume. And if you are looking into the hematocrit values, it is the blood volume of packed RBCs in 100 cc of blood. In females, it is 42%. And if you are going to the reticulocytes, it is 0.022%. These are the cells with the remnants of the nucleus. This reticulocytes indicates overactive bone marrow as in hemolytic anemia. Next, we can see the leukocytes. The total leukocyte count is 4,000 to 10,000 millimeter cube, and it increases during pregnancy up to 9,500 to 10,500 millimeter cube, and it may come up to 16,000 millimeter cube during the time of labor and in the first few weeks of puerperium. And the leukocytes, if you are going to the differential count, the basophils contributes to 0 to 1%, and eosinophils contributes 3 to 5%, and monocytes is 3 to 8%, and lymphocytes contributes 20 to 30%, and neutrophils include 60 to 70% of the total leukocyte count. And when it is coming to the platelet value, it is 2 lakhs to 4 lakh per millimeter cube, and the bleeding time is 2 to 4 minutes, and the coagulation time or clotting time is 4 to 8 minutes. And now we can see what is anemia. Anemia is a reduction in the number of RBCs and hemoglobin content with a corresponding reduction in the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. So because of the reduction in the RBC and because of the reduction in the hemoglobin level, the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood will decrease, and that is known as the anemia. According to the causes, the anemia is classified into iron deficiency anemia, megaloblastic anemia, and hemolytic anemias. This megaloblastic anemia can be a folic acid deficiency anemia or a vitamin B12 deficiency anemia, or it is known as Addisonian pernicious anemia. First, let us see about the iron deficiency anemia. It is the most common type of anemia, that is, it is the reason for the 95% of the anemia. The daily requirement of iron in the normal human being is 10 milligram per day, of which 1 milligram is getting absorbed. The requirement during pregnancy will increase, and it will come up to 15 milligram per day. And the iron deficiency anemia can occur due to the inadequate intake of iron, defective absorption of iron, example in the case of eclohydria, increased demand, that is during the pregnancy and during the menstruation, the demand of iron will increase, or chronic blood loss, that is abnormal uterine bleeding, or due to the piles, or even due to the hemorrhage, or due to the injuries. If chronic bleeding is occurring, that also may produce this iron deficiency anemia. The clinical features of iron deficiency anemia include easy fatigability, headache, dyspnea, and palpitation. The signs include pallor. It can be detected in the face, palm of the hand, nail bed, and mucous membranes of the mouth and conjunctiva. These areas will become pale. And angular stomatitis and red glazed tongue will be there. The nails will become brittle, striated, and with loss of its luster will lose. Spooning of the nails will occur in the severe cases. The investigations that we can perform for identifying the iron deficiency anemia include, we can assess the RBC, hemoglobin level, and hematocrit levels, and the serum iron concentration level below normal, that is if it is 125 milligram per deciliter, and iron binding capacity if it is less than 400 milligram per deciliter, and transferrin saturation is below 30%, and if the blood film shows microcytic hypochromic anemia, so these investigations will help you to identify the iron deficiency anemia. And the treatment, we can go for the dietary modifications. We can give the diet which is rich in iron content, that includes liver, meat, kidney, eggs, and green leaf vegetables which are rich in iron. Otherwise, you can go for the oral iron therapy. You can give ferrous sulfate or ferrous gluconate 300 mg TDS after the meals, 3 times in a day after the meals. But the side effects of this iron therapy include it may produce nausea, vomiting, and constipation. So we can go for the parenteral iron therapy also. The preparations we are using in the parenteral iron therapy include iron dextran complex. We can give it either as IV or IM injection, or iron sorbitol citrate complex. You can give it as IM injection. There are certain side effects for this parenteral therapy. That is, the IM injections, it may produce irritation and it is painful, and it may produce stain on the skin, and it is less absorbed when comparing with the IV injection. So if we need to have repeated doses, we can go for the IV infusion, or infusion in saline solution is preferable. IV therapy may get complicated by flushing, urticaria, arthralgia, fever, lymphadenopathy, phlebitis, and anaphylaxis. So these are the complications for the parenteral therapy. So from this, it's very clear that there are complications for the IM injection and for the IV therapy also. And the other treatment method includes, you can give the packed RBCs, and it is used if more rapid response is needed. That is in the case of post-operative or pre-operative, or even after the severe bleeding. In order to replace the blood volumes for as early as possible, we can use the packed RBCs. Next is megaloblastic anemia. This is caused by the deficiency of folic acid and vitamin B12. The daily requirement of fluoride is 500 mg per day, and a similar amount is needed during pregnancy also. So that the daily requirement during pregnancy is 1 mg. The causes for the folic acid deficiency anemia include inadequate intake, defective absorption, increased demand, that is during the pregnancy, and the drugs, that is the folic acid antagonists. Example, epanutine, or it's an anti-epileptic drug. Certain drugs are acting as an antagonist for folic acid. In such cases, there is a chance for getting the folic acid deficiency anemia. And the clinical picture include the general symptoms of anemia, whatever we have seen in the iron deficiency anemia will be there even here also. And along with that, the GI tract, gastrointestinal tract manifestations also will be there. That is, dyspepsia will be there, loss of appetite will be there, anorexia will be there, nausea will be there, vomiting, diarrhea, and the tongue will be beefy tongue, that is red and glazed tongue, and hepatosplenomegaly also you can see in the case of folic acid deficiency anemia. And the investigations, you can take the blood filling, and you can go for the microcytic hyperchromic RBCs and hypersegmented neutrophilic nuclei, and you can see the serum folate levels, and it is slow measured by radioimmunoassay. And we can go for the bone marrow aspirations. Abnormal red blood cell precursors can be seen in megaloblastic anemia. And the treatment of folic acid deficiency anemia include, we can give the diet which is rich in folic acid, that includes liver, kidney, and meat, and you can give folic acid 5 to 15 mg per day orally. Next is vitamin B12 deficiency anemia, or Addisonian pernicious anemia. The causes include inadequate intake of vitamin B12, deficient intrinsic factor as in atopic gastritis or gastrectomy, malabsorption syndrome, increased demand, that is example during pregnancy. The clinical features include, all the general symptoms of anemia will be there, along with that GI tract manifestations of folic acid deficiency also will be there. And here nervous manifestations also will be there, that is subacute combined regeneration will be there, and peripheral neuritis also will be there in the case of megaloblastic anemia, along with the other features of anemia. And the investigations as folic acid deficiency anemia plus decreased serum vitamin B12 level is there, if it is detected, you can confirm the vitamin B12 deficiency anemia. And the treatment, you can give vitamin B12 IM injection, and folic acid is never given alone for vitamin B12 deficiency anemia, as it will increase the nervous manifestations. Next is hemolytic anemias. It can be congenital or can be acquired. Congenital is intracorpuscular and acquired is extracorpuscular. In congenital, examples include spherocytosis, hemoglobinopathies, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. So these are the congenital situations that may produce a hemolytic anemia. And the acquired include the chemicals, that is drugs, certain drugs, lead and snake venom, and infections like malaria, with, especially with the Clostridium welchii, and hypersplenism. So these are the common situations that may produce a hemolytic anemia. And another reason is hemoglobinopathies, that is thalassemia and sickle cell anemia. So this thalassemia may be thalassemia alpha thalassemia major or alpha thalassemia minor, or it may be beta thalassemia major, or it can be beta thalassemia minor also. Now we can see these hemolytic anemias one by one. First one is congenital spherocytosis. It's an autosomal dominant disorder in which there is a deficiency in the lipoprotein of cell membrane, leading to increased rigidity of the RBC and hence the destruction, especially in the spleen. So what actually it is produced in the destruction of RBC. And the features of anemia, all the features of anemia will be there even in the case of congenital spherocytosis also. And along with that, features of hemolytic jaundice also will be there, that is skin will become yellow, that is lemon yellow skin will be there, and tinge of jaundice in the sclera, the dark color stool and normal urine which darkens on standing, and hepatosplenomegaly also will be there. And this condition is inherited by 50% of the mother offspring. In the infant, jaundice develop. In the case of infants, the jaundice develop within 48 hours after birth, and exchange transfusion is needed for such babies. Next is thalassemia. This is also an autosomal inherited disorder resulted from the failure of the production of either a chain, that is alpha thalassemia, or beta chain, that is beta thalassemia, of the hemoglobin molecule, and their replacement with other polypeptide chains. In the case of alpha thalassemia major, the fetus, that is the fetus will get affected from the uterus itself, and it will be producing polyhydramnios, erythroblastosis, anemia and hydrops fetalis, and this will resembles almost as like Rh incompatibility. And most probably the baby will not survive due to the inability of the oxygen transfer, because this chain is responsible for the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood. And next we can see the alpha thalassemia minor. The patient develop mild progressive anemia during the pregnancy. Next is beta thalassemia major. This disorder starts in the childhood and it leads to the death of the patient mostly in the second or third decade. And next is beta thalassemia minor. This is almost same as like alpha thalassemia minor. Next we can see the effect of this thalassemia on pregnancy. This beta thalassemia major, usually it's occurring very rarely in the pregnant woman, but if it happens, its prognosis is very poor, because by the second trimester the anemia will become severe and that may lead to the heart failure. Next is sickle cell anemia. This is also an autosomal inherited disorder in which the glutamic acid in the position of 6 of the beta chain of the hemoglobin molecule will be replaced by the valine. So this leads to the production of hemoglobin S, that is hemoglobin XS. This, when it is getting exposed to hypoxia, it will form insoluble aggregations and RBC will become sickle shaped and are subsequently fragmented. So this RBCs will increase the viscosity of the blood, that is this sickle cell RBCs will increase the viscosity of the blood, and it leads to the occlusion of the major blood vessels, or it will block the major blood vessels, and by that way also this will decrease the supply to the major organs. And the manifestations usually appear in homozygous, not in heterozygous. Next, the clinical features. The features of anemia and hemolytic jaundice will be there, and multiple infects due to the obstruction of the microcirculation to the spleen, kidney, central nervous system, retina, bone, lungs, and heart. So when the blood supply to these organs are getting affected, these organs also will functioning of these organs also will get affected. And there is an increased susceptibility to the infection, especially the urinary tract infection. And the person will get the severe abdominal pain and fever are common due to the ischemia and due to the infections. And pre-eclampsia like syndrome with hypertension, edema and proteinuria also will develop, and increased fetal wastage will occur due to the sometimes abortion will occur, otherwise preterm labor will occur, otherwise if the pregnancy is progressing also intrauterine growth retardation will be there due to the placental insufficiency. And this placental insufficiency is due to the decreased blood supply to the uterus, and even if supply is there also, clot will form in the, already we have seen this sickle cell shaped RBCs will occlude the placental blood vessels and it will produce a thrombus also. And the management of sickle cell disease during labor include, we should take measures to avoid hypoxia, because when hypoxia is occurring only, these cells will become S-shaped. So avoid hypoxia, dehydration and acidosis, and treat the crisis by rehydration by giving bicarbonates. In order to treat the acidosis, we can give the bicarbonates, give analgesics, and if clot formation is there, means we can give heparin or low molecular weight dextran, and prophylactic antibiotic also should be given, because already we have seen the person is having the chance for getting infection. Next, we can see the investigations of hemolytic anemia. The serum bilirubin level will be raised, and if you are doing the analysis of the urine, you can identify the increased urobilinogen level, and in the stool also increased stercobilinogen level will be there. And the investigations of hemolytic anemia includes, we can go for the blood filling, and the small spherical RBC in the case of spherocytosis, you can see the target cells in case of thalassemia major, and the sickling after inducing hypoxia by addition of sodium bisulfate in the case of sickle cell anemia. So these investigations you can do for identifying the hemolytic anemia. Otherwise, you can go for the electrophoresis in order to detect the type of hemoglobin in the case of hemoglobinopathies. And estimation of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase activity also will be helpful for identifying the hemolytic anemias. And the treatment of hemolytic anemia, you can go for the blood transfusion in the case of acute attacks. You can give folic acid and iron therapy if it is needed. Next, we can see the treatment of hemolytic anemia. You can go for the splenectomy in the case of spherocytosis and in the case of thalassemia major. But even if you are doing also, we should not do it during the pregnancy. And we should always take measures to avoid the precipitating factors. That is, we should take measures to prevent anemia, especially in the case of spherocytosis, and oxidizing agents in case of glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency. So these are the major things about the anemia during pregnancy. Thank you for watching this video. See you soon with a new video. Bye.